Hey everybody, I just want to do something fun and kind of off topic. We're going to take a look at the trailer for the new Stranger Things Season 3, which I'm a huge fan of. It centers around the summer of 1985. I grew up in the 80s, and 1985 specifically for me was one of the best summers I ever had, coincidentally. So it's very strange that the Duffer Brothers, who made Stranger Things, seem to concentrate on the summer of 85 because it was, for a lot of us growing up in the 80s, for some reason, I don't know why, it was just a really cool summer. I don't know why. It's just so odd that I find they really highlight the summer in the newest season. So I like to find all little 80s references and so forth, and I found a lot. Actually, I found one that I really, being a crab on the internet, I was just like, no, this is a trailer. This is a scene from Daryl, the movie Daryl, which was an old 80s movie. And even the Duffer Brothers responded to that and said, somebody keeps saying it's Daryl, and we've never seen Daryl. So that was a bit odd, I have to say. I was the only one saying there was a reference in Daryl. There's actually a scene in Season 2, which is the perfect framing from a scene from the movie Daryl, which was an old 80s movie about a robot kid, like a sci-fi channel type movie, or sci-fi movie, sorry. So let's go ahead and just watch the trailer here and just see what we got.
Someone's happy I'm home.
One thing I love about this trailer is the fact that there's a lot of different, they use the red camera, I was told, and they're not on Alexa. It seems like you either use the Alexa or the red camera, and Duffer Brothers really like the red camera specifically. There's a couple references that I kind of spot, and I'll go through these in a minute. I find these kids are getting a little bit too old for these roles, but I don't know, it's just me, I guess. It is funny because back in the 80s, we always used to have really tight clothes like this, you know what I mean? And it was always not really a heavy style back then. It was just a mess of colors. So I find that really interesting. And there's so much in this trailer that really brings you back to your childhood. And I love some of the elements of all of the 80s movies that they reference. I think this one's like E.T. or whatever. I could be wrong. I was actually driving through Atlanta on my way to Florida, and I was going through a website that told where they were filming, and I actually went on location to the mall that they have on this, but unfortunately it was on a Sunday and everybody had closed down for the day, so the mall was there. There was a couple people going into the mall checking things, but with the exception of 2 security guards watching the set, there was nothing to really be seen. So we were kind of like, that sucks. So we did see the mall, and they had big plywood boards up against the actual scene. Here's where we were at, actually. And you could see into the mall. It wasn't actually big. They make it look really big in this trailer. So I remember they were also asking for extras to be protesters, specifically outside of, I think it was like a bunch of protesters angry or something. So we tried to get on that, but we didn't have enough time because we were on our way to a place in Florida. I love some of the visual effects work in here. There's obviously some weird laser machine they're going to be doing here. I don't know what that's all about, but yeah, this is, again, a lot of people don't realize like 1985 isn't that far away from the technology of 1990. So it's not too far into the 80s, so to speak, in regards to being totally, quote-unquote, like 1980 itself. This is 1985, so. All right, so the references as we go through here. I find this pirate music kind of interesting. If you guys know Rec Room, the VR Rec Room, they're actually somewhat nostalgic video game, and they actually use kind of like that audio. All right, so let's go through this with the sound down here. So my opinion kind of going through this, these guys must have seen one of my favorite movies. I always show my class this movie. It's Roland Emmerich's Making Contact, and I find that some of these toys, if I'm not mistaken, some of these toys are actually in the movie. And it was Roland Emmerich's ripoff of Poltergeist and E.T., but it's a classic 1985-ish movie, I think it was, when it came out. So there's a lot of movies in here that are very 1985-ish. There's even cast members in here that fathers were, kid actors back in 1985. For instance, the daughter of Ethan Hawke is in this, and he was in Explorers, which they parodied, and I think it was season 2. So again, you got this whole element of being. I find this. I don't know if this is a reference. I could be way off, but there was a specific movie back in the 80s that was Invaders from Mars. I forgot who directed that. I think it was Carpenter. But they would have an actual line here with, obviously the tracks, and it was a hill. So I don't know if I'm going way overboard here in regards to some of these references. To me, this would be E.T. putting up the whole, putting up this. Again, a lot of this was filmed around Atlanta, so this could be some goofy Porky's or some goofy episodes. I don't know. I don't know too much of the teen angst movies or whatever back in the day. Smoking in a restaurant obviously is prohibited today, so he looks a little tall, in my opinion. The checkerboard socks. This is very typical, I think, of like a typical 80s movie. It always has that sort of like Spielbergian composite, even back then, optical composite of the skies and so forth. When you think about Close Encounters, there was a lot of optical compositing of the skies with cloud tanks and so forth. So, I don't know why he's freaking out. I don't remember any Chips Ahoy restaurant or place to get everything. Everything was less graphics designed when you had a mall back in the 80s. So it was really kind of tacky looking. And malls did look like that. I don't remember any neon, though, along the walls of the mall itself. This is actually we actually parked our car over here. There was no cars here when we did this, and everything was sort of like, there was some like 4th of July apparel in the window here, so we knew like, okay, the show must be based around 4th of July. So, and they had like big boards kind of boarding up this area here, and we just pulled up and looked in. Some woman was over here walking over and going in. So we were kind of like, hey, can we go in the mall? And they're like, no. But anyway, they had not much going on. They had 2 huge production tents off to the right. And again, 2 guards kind of eyeballing us in case we caused any trouble. But again, they had plywood boards up here when they were not shooting to hide the actual signs themselves. It has a really nice tackiness to it. That's what I really like about it. Again, this mall, in reality, some guy actually on YouTube did a tour of it before we started filming. It's not really that big. But this is the way malls did look back then. Everything was very wooden. Not so many neon tacky signs, though. I mean, I don't know what reference they were using, but I know the Duffer Brothers, they don't dip around. Supposedly, this was an old carnival ride back in the day, right here. So, I don't know. This was kind of a cool shot. I think this is a reference to Terminator, in my personal opinion. You got this guy who's somewhat, there's also a reference to The Fly in here. So I'm going to try to grab all the references that I think that are kind of going through here. So obviously we just kind of go through. To me, this whole infection thing has a zombie thing going. So back in the day, 1985, you had movies like Day of the Dead. You also had Dawn of the Dead, made back in the 70s, which had the mall experience. There is, one of the episodes is the bite or something. So someone gets bit by something, whether it's a giant spider monster. I think it has a combination of things like The Fly, which was another 80s movie. So you could see he's getting infected. So some are saying that Bully Kid, actually, Billy becomes an actual, the monster itself. So I don't know. Actually, this is like right out of, they didn't go down here, but they, if you remember the movie Dawn of the Dead, one of the characters goes right down the escalator here and just, it was an old classic scene. I really like this shot. I don't know why. I just think it's the coolest shot ever. I'm amazed at some of the lighting they do in this show. They got all the flickering, you got the kids coming through. Now here, take a look, gang. If you just still frame this, because they do a great job of showing a great visual effects element, but they're also doing a great job of hiding it in shadow. So they don't tell you what it is, but again, this looks like some kind of laser beam or something. Is this another lab that's actually trying to reopen the Upside Down? Is this a different location? Then, you got some scientists over here and so forth. This is probably going to be the opening of the show, I think. So you can see everybody's there. There's gas masks or something. I don't know what that's all about. So they obviously turn this machine on. And again, in regards to visual effects, these lasers are cool looking, but to me, I never, something about lightning in visual effects movies never sells me because the brightness of the actual lightning is never bright enough to light the areas around it. I don't know, that's just me, I guess. I love showing trailers to my students and just saying, hey, what do you think of the visual effects? Just being honest with them. They may not be geniuses. They may not know anything about visual effects yet, but to get their minds thinking in more of a photographically real reference and saying, does this look like anything you've seen in the real life? You don't have to be a visual effects expert. You just got to ask yourself, when you look at this, does that look like something you would see in real life? This is obviously the one sister going through. This is obviously a reference, I would assume, either to Die Hard or to Aliens, obviously, with Bishop going through the ducks here. Obviously, the mall, to me, has always been you always go back to Dawn of the Dead when it comes to the mall. And also the kind of tacky neon lighting of the mall. It has that sort of weird look to it that is the old 1970s and 80s type mall effort here. So this guy, I think, some are saying they're trying to equate him to Trump because the actual election sign is actually the actual design of it is kind of like Trump. I don't know. This is the guy who was actually in the movie Princess Bride. I forgot his name. So that's another 80s classic movie. So he plays, everyone's ticked off at him as mayor because he's building a mall, apparently. And the home businesses are struggling because of the mall. So they're kind of like all angry at him. I think he kind of he might have to do with the actual mayor of Jaws. There's a Jaws-esque feel to this, being Jaws was around July 4th. And again, you can see we got the rats. Somebody's saying rats have to do with a disease. Someone's leaving a disease or something. This is Gary Busey's son, Jake Busey, looking a little bit chubbier in the face nowadays. He got some crap on his face. I don't know what that's all about. Again, very Terminator-esque feel here. Very some of the machines feel like The Fly. Again, this of course is The Thing. I think this is more than anything John Carpenter's The Thing, shapeshifter. It could be a combination of The Fly and Thing. And again, this to me is Terminator. No one's catching this shot right here. This to me tells me these guys are zombies, or they're being influenced, or they're vampires because of the bite reference. But again, I'm kind of guessing here. I'm the type of guy that when someone says, hey, you got to go see the movie Sixth Sense, I always rush to the ending, or I try to figure out the ending before I go see the movie, because I want to judge the movie as a whole. Some people take that incredibly offensively, like, how dare you know the ending before you see a movie and then make a judgment on that movie? I'm like, no, I mean, a movie should be just held up for itself. So here, this guy gets injected with something from somebody, I don't know who, you can't see. So all these characters, I love the movie, I love the characters. Obviously some disease that's infecting people. And if you take a look at this one girl, if I can get a clip of her, I don't know where she's at. She's actually sitting at the poolside with Billy. There's always the Egos reference. So I swear the Duffer Brothers actually use actual framing and lighting that matches 80s movies. I'm not kidding. So obviously 80s aerobics or whatever. This is to me is Terminator or Die Hard. And then you got, see if I can catch it really quick. There it is. So something tells me this woman's infected because she's got kind of like, her eyes are obviously bloodshot. And so there's some sort of vampire-esque reality. Eventually Billy gets infected with something. I don't know what. And then of course you got this lunatic from the front. I didn't like this guy too much because he was kind of a pig and people like him because of his kind of nastiness, but I just didn't really care for his character. I don't know. I don't know why people love him so much. And then, again, you got this sort of feel. There's probably some stuff in here that's being referenced that is Stephen King. To me, you got an element of Jaws. You got an element of definitely, without a doubt, maybe It, the It creature, which was Spider-esque. Jaws, The Fly, and then of course, probably I'd say The Thing, without a doubt, The Thing, which is John Carpenter, because it has that sort of transformational kind of thing going on. I'd say that's all the references I can see. I mean, I don't know. And to me, I just love the show. I love the characters. I think it's really the characters about the story. If you just had a show that was all about monsters, you know, it'd be boring. It's really just about his people and their lives and a town that continues to be oblivious to the reality of the invasion that's happening more on a kind of a a personal, local level of a few people, as opposed to the entire world getting invaded. To me, that would just be a mess. It just wouldn't make any sense. So with that said, thank you guys. I know this is kind of like off topic, but again, I'm looking forward to July 4th to checking out this amazing series. And again, I recommend, if you haven't seen Stranger Things, see season 1 and 2. It's rare we have really good filmmaking today, and seems to be shifting to television.